Welcome to Beyond the Huddle, a Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. Join host Josh Adair and Zach Rose as they dive into real stories from athletes, coaches, and leaders making an eternal impact through sports. Each episode brings powerful conversations on faith, leadership, and living boldly for Christ in every field of play and walk of life. This is Beyond the Huddle.
Welcome to Beyond the Huddle, the Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. I'm your co-host, Zach Rose, and I say co-host because, again, my co-host Josh Adair is not with me today. So sad. He will be on for our next episode. He promises to be here. He loves all the people who are listening and watching, and he tells you a happy Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas. But we've got a very special guest on with us today. And I'm super excited to get to know a little bit more about him and his story and the impact that he's had through FCA and with FCA. And excited again to have really the real co-host I have on here, Mr. Lance Kaufman. He's back with another episode today. Lance, you got something for us today?
Well, it's an honor to be back, and I'm especially personally excited about Coach Comet because just getting to know him the last, 5-10 years, whatever it's been, He's what FCA wants in all their coaches. He's not just focused on wins and losses, although he's won quite a few in his career. You might ask him later what his career record is. I think it's like 422 wins against 7 losses, something like that.
But that was against my granddaughter on certain things, so like checkers and stuff. So yeah, I guess we could go with that number. That'd work.
Oh yeah,
there's a Hall of Fame ballot coming out pretty soon, and my name's not on it. If you'd like to write it in, I think that'd be great.
They do accept write-ins, but no, I'm excited for this time to be with you again, Zach. You're my favorite host.
Well, that's good. We won't tell Josh that.
Yeah, don't tell Josh that. And then, of course, Coach Comet.
Yeah.
I know him as JC.
There you go. Well,
wow.
That's an honor.
I'm glad you have Kleenex out here because I got a little teary-eyed there from it. And I didn't want Lance to stop that introduction. We'd do the whole 51 minutes, and I'd cry at the last minute and we'd be through. This is pretty exciting.
Oh, man. Well, I can already tell this is going to be a great episode. So, thank you, Coach Comet, for being on with us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're ecstatic that you're here. If you would mind just sharing a little bit about yourself, some of the places you've coached, a little bit about your story, who you are, and what you do.
Well, I might use up most of the time just telling about the story, but, the question is, how does a boy from Linwood, Washington, which is 25 miles north of Seattle, end up in Little Rock, Arkansas?
Great question.
And basically what happened is this whole story started when there was a couple that owned a little grocery store around the corner from us, and we got to be really good friends with them. And in 1967, my dad was from West Virginia, so it wasn't uncommon to travel across country to go visit his family in West Virginia from the time I could remember. And so 1967, World's Fair in Montreal, we took a vacation, went up to Montreal, down through West Virginia, down through New York, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, visit his family, and stopped in Arkansas to visit that couple that just moved from Washington down to Garfield, Arkansas. And so we, stopped by and visited, and my mom and Jerry's wife, Marlis, went out driving around, and Mom came back about an hour later and said, "Bud, we just bought 57 acres. And so we went from the city life to farm life, raising cattle and hogs, and the friendships that I made in Rogers at that time. We went 8th and 9th grade year, went back to Seattle, did my high school 10 through 12 up there, but every summer I'd come back down and stay with my friend in Rogers. And when I graduated from high school, he went to Arkansas State, and I said, that sounds like a good thing to do. And so I went to Arkansas State and eventually graduated and ended up getting a job in Parkin, Arkansas, and did that for a year and went back to Kansas City and did a couple of years managing racquetball clubs, and then back to Dixon Road, got on Dixon Road because the guy I was working with in Parkin was on Dixon Road at that time, and they needed an extra coach. So I came down, did junior high, and spent most of my career on Dixon Road, met my wife, and, 42 years later and being around the state, and shoot, let me think of all the areas I've been. I've been at Parkin, I've been at Blytheville. Well, let's go in order here. Parkin, Fuller Junior High, back to Kansas City for a year, Blytheville, back to Dixon Road, out to Scott, the alternative school. Got through the alternative school, went back to Fuller as a head football coach. Then they moved over the 9th grade over to Mills, so I was at Mills. And after that, retired and came back and was at Barton for a year, and then in Sylvan Hills for about 2.5, 3 years. And I retired, right before the COVID thing hit in January. So it was a good little run.
Yeah. So you've bounced around a few different places, and
Right.
It seems like, man, the Lord has been with you as you've gone through those places. I always love hearing people's stories and how unique the Lord uses different opportunities or different circumstances to really grab a hold of our attention or
Right.
to continue to grow us through seasons. So would you mind just sharing a little bit about your personal story and your testimony of maybe how you came to the Lord and what that has looked like through your coaching career?
Well, where I grew up, I was literally blessed because right across the street from us was the rectory for the Catholic Church right behind there, and that was Father Westerhaven and Father Dugan. Father Dugan was the owner, and right next door to him was the Baptist minister that had the church just down around the block by the elementary school, and so I had great role models on both sides. My dad, being from West Virginia, just kind of a country gospel and old time religion, I guess you could put it that way. And Mom was actually Orthodox Jew before she met Dad, and became a Christian when she moved to West Virginia with Dad when my sisters were younger. I've never told Lance this story, so it's fun to watch him go over there and go, where's this one going? I've not heard this one before.
I'm sitting here thinking, Coach Comet, say what?
I do that to my wife every once. I've never heard that story. I said, well, that's why we've been together for 42 years. I didn't just spill it out all at first. This is a documentary. It goes on. You got new things that come along on each episode. But
One thing, Zach, I forgot to tell you how wise he is too.
Oh, wise. Maybe a wise. Well, that's
Wise
a whole
husband.
Yeah, wise husband. Wisdom. I quit praying for patience because I'd find somebody to tick me off. So I just pray for wisdom now to decide which one I need to get mad at. It's one of those type of things. So back to the story, but with those two folks, the Father Westerhaven was a young guy, so he worked with me with some athletics and things, and he was very athletic and very involved with the kids. And Pastor Riffle, of course, that was kind of more in line of our beliefs in the house. I remember going to summer vacation Bible school, and I remember, it was, if you picture my house, about probably 4 blocks to the elementary school, which we walked, and the church was right across the street from the school. So it was walking distance was down, and I remember we were in a room, little Bible study. She was Mrs. Riffle was talking about the gospel and do you believe in Jesus? Yes, and do you accept him? Sure. It was one of those type of things, and so I remember giving my life to Christ at that point in time, and for what I knew, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think from that point in time it was you do this, don't do that, more of a follow the rules, don't follow the rules. I'm good if I follow the rules and not. Well, so that was kind of a start, and I remember I've seen pictures of me, walking down the church that we went to, which was another church a little bit farther south than where we lived, but I'm walking down the aisle with a diaper and 6 guns on each side and my cowboy hat and bottle to do something. I don't know what I'd do, but I got one of those pictures around somewhere. There's a visual to try to look at and think about. People are pulling off the road right now and just crashing because they can't believe that. But anyway, so that's kind of where the background was there. And as you progress through life, you try to do the things that you try, the right things to do. At least that's what I've always tried to do. Try to do the right things, or what I, scripturally right, whether I realized it or not. So you continue on, and junior high, I was down here, met some friends, and I think we went to a small church in northwest Arkansas there a little bit, and living on the farm, it's kind of hard to get away sometimes on Sundays, but we did, and then moved back, and high school, and I remember at that time in high school, Campus Crusade for Life, Randy Hurley was on our campus, and he was talking to athletes and everything else, and after the games he'd go to either McDonald's or Hershey's or Jimbo's, and we'd end up at Hershey's, and which was just a little hamburger joint, and Randy'd be there, and he's talking to everybody and sharing the 4 spiritual laws with you, How
do you about that?
And I remember him giving me that, where are you at in this? Oh yeah, I'm good. No, you need to read that. I mean, it's one of those type of things. I'm good. I got it. No. There's more to it than what you think.
Real quick for our audience, in case you don't know what that means, the 4 spiritual laws was a little yellow booklet that I first heard the gospel through. It's a tract, basically, is what we say today. But it was the first one of its kind, and it's been distributed to maybe 2, 3, 4 billion people, and so that's really kind of cool to me. That just a little after that, I heard the gospel through the 4 spiritual laws of Campus Crusade for Christ.
Right. And so, Randy's sitting there, and we're talking. I remember him going, "It's a matter of faith. It's belief." Okay, all right. And, yeah, okay, I understand. Jesus lived, he died, and he rose for us, and that type of thing. It was belief. Where you at? It's just kind of one of those type of things. And it's, I'm a tough football player. I don't know. At least I thought I was.
Yeah.
And so he kind of thought I was, I guess. So he was breaking me down. But and I remember him saying, "Let me ask you something. If we were between 2 tall buildings and there was a 2x4 running across there, a 2x6 from one side to the other, and I put a wheelbarrow on there, I put it up there and go, do you think I can go across on that?" "Yeah, man, you can make it. Go ahead." He goes, "Yeah, I can do it." Comes back, "Still think I know?" "Yeah, you bet." "Okay, get in the wheelbarrow." And that's what he's getting me to do. And so I remember saying and telling him that, I'd read the booklet and I prayed the prayer for salvation and stuff at the end. So that was kind of another step. And I remember there was certain, I had a 10th grade English teacher that was a Christian, and he'd talk about Christ in class a little bit, and there was some other students that were kind of did a Bible study with him, I guess, as far as I can look back now and see. And, I kind of admired what they were doing and where they were at. So, that was high school. And then in college, it was, a little more of the same. You got people that came into your life that were, you looked at Christian and go, "Yeah, I like what they got, but, I don't know I could do what they're doing." And so that was through my undergraduate year, and going into my senior year, I was going to school at Arkansas State, and I went back to Seattle to finish my final year because there was an opportunity to maybe teach and coach at my high school, which when I was back doing my senior year, I was scouting and doing things for the football team, so I was kind of excited about being back and doing that. And, of course, I got back with a friend of mine that ended up being really good friends and played football with and stuff like that. And he'd had some tough times playing college ball and got where he liked to party more than he did study. And so he kind of dropped out of that and basically recommitted his life to Christ and accepted Christ and, recommitted. And we went to a revival at the church that I grew up in, which was Richmond Highland Baptist Church, and down towards Seattle somewhere. And if I remember correctly, the pastor that was doing the revival was from Russellville, Arkansas, which I knew where Russellville was, but I wasn't, real familiar. I kind of had an idea. And there's that part in that revival where, you come on down type thing was going on.
The invitation.
The invitation. There you go. Thank you for that. I didn't know exactly the right words. And
turn into the Price is Right there for
pretty
a
much,
second.
yeah. Come on
Come on
down. I got a story for that one too. But anyway, so and my buddy Dave was about 6'3", 6'4", probably about 250, 260 at that time, and you're looking 1976. That's a pretty good sized young man for guys back then. And the pastor and the revival, maybe somebody's waiting for you to step on out and come on down. And I'm sitting there, and it's not going to be me. I'm not going to be leading nobody down this aisle, And all of a sudden I feel the wind move as Dave heads down the aisle. And so I went, dadgum, he stepped out there. I guess I better go too. So I followed him down and recommitted my life to Christ at that time. And, one of many. Sometimes we get off track and got to get back on track. And we both committed. We both got baptized. And, I look back, and one of the things that was basically keeping me from doing any of that was I don't want to be hypocritical. I've seen those hypocritical people. I don't want to be one of those. That's not, no. Either I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it, but I'm not going to be hypocritical. And so and I knew I'd be hypocritical, so that kept me from I didn't want to be one, and I knew I was going to be one. So I'm not going to do it, and that way I don't have to be, losing in two different areas. And so we committed to be baptized and stuff, and our pastor, I think his name was Barry Gordon. Barry was a Korean vet and had both knees amputated, or both legs amputated below the knees. And so, how it is when you start to get in the baptismal pool. Well, he did Dave first. And God bless him. Dave was a little more to handle than Pastor Barry could quite deal with. And so, and yes. And they dunked Dave back in the water. And it was like, do you believe it? We weren't too sure whether we were going to have a revival or a funeral for there for a second, because he had a hard time getting Dave out of the water. And so he did, and, Dave came too. And I remember in my turn, and, do you believe in Jesus Christ? He lived, he died, he rose again. Are you willing to follow him the rest of you? Yes, yes, yes. And the whole idea of hypocritical, was still sticking in my mind. And I got baptized, and when I came out of the water, it just came to me and said, wait a second, this is a one-to-one relationship between you and me, between you and Jesus Christ. So how I deal with other people is basically none of your business. This is about you and me sitting and doing developing the relationship and going from there. And so, as I moved around in life doing, did my final year of college up there, and it didn't work out getting a job, so I came back to Arkansas State and finished a master's degree. And I had a fraternity brother that was a coach at the time, and he was talking about getting a head coaching job, and when you're retiring, or not retiring, but when you graduate, because I want you on my staff. And so that worked out real well, and then he's the one that came to Little Rock, and I went to Kansas City and managed racquetball clubs for a couple of years, now I feel like I'm kind of settled. I got me a job. I'm, maybe settled down, have a family, and didn't work, and, ended up coming to, I left, you know, it's a long story, but when you sit back and look at the puzzle and the pieces, you don't know why you're doing the things that you're doing at the time. You know, why were you left to go this way, or why were you do this and it didn't work out? But you knew God was leading you in that direction for a purpose, and it wasn't the purpose that you thought. It was a bigger purpose that you didn't see. You know, I tell people it's like putting a puzzle together without the picture of the box.
Yeah.
You just got to try to find the puzzle pieces. You know, you're the puzzle pieces. And so, you know, he got a head coaching job. I went there. He came to Little Rock. I went to Kansas City for a couple of years and managed racquetball clubs, like I mentioned earlier. And, you know, I decided, talking to him, this was at the time that, you know, fair was getting ready to open up, and there was a chance that this is what we talk about with Coach Glenn Escola all the time. And so really that was part of the reason why I came back, because that job there was going to be a job opening, and I thought, well, I'm going to go back to Arkansas State. I'm going to get my secondary degree in math, and then I'm going to, you know, be able to walk in and coach, because I've got a subject to teach other than physical health and, you know, physical education. Those two things make me more marketable. And so I went through that, and, you know, the day that I left Kansas City, right? The day that I left Kansas City, I didn't tell my friend I was leaving that was in Little Rock. I left, drove down from Kansas City to Jonesboro. I already had things set up. I was going to go back to work at a place that I'd worked at when I was going to college. I was hired there. All I had to do was sign up for my classes. I had a fraternity brother that had a house. I was going to move in and live with him. So it was, you know, I was going to go back and enjoy college a little bit, because I'd already got my degree, you know, and not work so much during the college time. But anyway, we went out to dinner, came back, and there was a phone call, and it was my friend saying, hey, we got a job open for you in Little Rock. We want you to come down and interview. And that was at Fuller Junior High. And that was in like December of 1981. There was, you know, I know, anyway, some of the people that weren't alive back then, so thought I'd go ahead and put that foot.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, yeah. You weren't a twinkle in anybody's eye at that point in time. You weren't even a bright star at that time, you know. So we went down, interviewed for the job, got the job, came back and, you know, started coaching again there. And that summer I asked the principal. I walked in the office one day and I said, hey, Mr. Blackwell, Tom Blackwell was the principal, and I said, did you hire any good-looking single teachers? He said, don't worry. I said, oh, okay. So,
did you actually say that?
Yeah, I did. And he said, yeah. And I said, yeah, okay, right. Because, anyway, excuse me, but that's a whole nother, well, it's part of the story, because one day as I was walking through the gym, there was this good-looking lady that was a drill team sponsor that he'd just hired, and I hadn't met her yet. And I wanted to, but I was kind of shy, but I was also kind of a joker. And she was giving these 9th grade and 8th grade girls a what for, because they didn't do what they were supposed to do in practice. And she's all up in their grill. And I'm just going, yeah, got a little fire to her. Okay, that's good. And I literally walked by, not as close as I am to the mic here, maybe step off a foot or two, and she's got her back turned to me, and she's giving them what for. And I just walked by and I said, go ahead, Jay, lay your best line on her. So I walked by and I said, I really had a great time last night. I'll talk to you later. And I walked off. I'd never met her before. And she's going, what? Well, if you can imagine a bunch of junior high girls, because I'd already been there a semester right ahead of her. Oh, man, they went nuts. Oh, you know who we're talking about. You know who he is, you know, and all that stuff. The girl I hadn't married yet or even gone out on a date yet had kind of, you know, was going, what the heck's going on?
Was her first name Becky by any
It was
chance?
Becky. Yeah, it was.
Just a wild guess.
I was going to say, you're on the roll today, Lance. You really are. I mean, the Bible study and this now. I mean, Zach, we need to get a lottery ticket or something,
so,
because
yeah.
and let him pick the numbers, because he's right on to say. So anyway, kind of that. And then we had an ice cream social, and I didn't have anybody. She didn't have anybody. And I said, well, I didn't have anybody. What was your name again? Oh, Becky. Okay, yeah. Well, Becky's here with me. And, oh, yeah, I'm here with him. What's your name? And so then, the ice was broken and it made me extremely cracked.
I think the ice was already broken a little bit.
Yeah, it was not only broken, it might have been melted. But anyway.
Did she come back around during the ice cream or any time saying, what do you mean by that crack?
No, I don't remember her doing that. But I do remember like a day or so later actually asking her out properly. And she said yes, which kind of surprised me. And once again, being, I don't know if I should say this or not. It might give a bad influence on me after talking about this. But, I knew she liked musicals, and I liked comedy. And at that time, there was a movie out with Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds. Yeah. And
the Little House in Texas.
It wasn't the Little House. It wasn't. It was a Little House on the Prairie, but it's not the same one that we're talking about. Yeah, it had to do with professional women and stuff. But anyway, and it was funny, but it was kind of like that's just. And she went back the next day to. She had a second job, and one of her friends from work asked her, said. Well, how'd your date go last night? She said, I just met the man I'm going to marry.
Whoa.
Wow.
And I wasn't quite, I was wondering who she was talking about because I didn't think it was me after that, dinner and the wonderful movie I took her to. And, then we dated and still coaching, and she was committed and I was committed, and we ended up getting married and been together 42 years. And through that period of time, We've coached in several different places, as I mentioned, and did different jobs along the way. I tried sales. I tried other things. I tried fitness center, owning a fitness center, and boy, nothing ever seemed to work out. And as soon as because I get upset and tired with teaching, I get upset and tired with coaching, and I got my ladder up against the wrong wall, and I'm trying to do this and that, and about 40, when I turned 40, I was down because I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And it's just like, once again, the teaching job was just there, and it was kind of like, do what I called you to do, which is teach and coach.
And it seems like, listening to all that and hearing it before, would you say that obviously God called you to coaching and working with kids, and you might have tried to go and look other places, but it seems like he always brought you back to what I think you're so good at, is working with
Thank you.
There's a little story on Coach Comet. I was at Arkansas Baptist College, and I was meeting the coaching staff, and the line coach I introduced myself to, and I started to ask him some questions, and turns out he graduated high school at Mills High School, and I asked him if he knew Coach Comet, and his eyes lit up, and of course JC knows what I'm talking about. This young man owed a lot of who he was and to the fond memories he had as I think you were his position coach.
Right, he was the defensive end.
And that was just one little piece of evidence of, I'm so glad God called you back where you really can make a difference. And like Coach Escola, there's a lot of kids that when you mention his name, Zach, it's you can see the impact he's had.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've been fortunate. I've had some great coaches that I've worked with, that have both from a football standpoint or track or basketball, because I've done a little bit of everything, that I had to, I had some really great coaches to mentor me. And also there's some great Christian coaches that I worked with that mentored me also. So I've been, I look back now and very, very blessed even though the journey sometimes was, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? It wasn't.
No straight line.
No, absolutely not. It wasn't like, okay, I'm just going to go up this sloped hill. No. It's not that way at all.
Let me ask you a question off of that. You had guys before you teaching you. Now that you've had a full career, and we got these young guys coming behind you, and I'm sure there's going to be some coaches in our listening audience. Hindsight's 20/20, right?
Right.
With everything you went through and wanting to use your platform faithfully to the Lord to lift Christ up to them and help them win, not just on the field but off the field, is there any advice you would give a young coach just starting out to consider that you had to learn, maybe shortcut his learning curve?
Well, in whatever you're doing, become knowledgeable and get yourself prepared to go to the next level. I thought I was prepared to go to the next level. I'm a hard worker. I spent a lot of time watching film. And I was real good about thinking things through. If somebody went through the process and did it, I was real good at following the process, and using their what worked for them. That I'd learned might not necessarily work for me, or it'd work for me if I put my own personality or whatever into it. But as I got older, one of the things that I always wanted to do was be a head coach in football on the high school level, kind of one of those Rudy stories, and take a town or a program that wasn't very well along and develop it along the way, and championships and state rings and consistent. And
is that movie lightly based on your story, Rudy?
My story related to Rudy is in 1974, I turned out for spring football at Arkansas State. And I went through most of the off-season program, and then they started scrimmaging, and towards the end and stuff like that, which was a little bit different than what I learned in high school. Stay low, don't get blown back, just build a pile. Lou, and you're on, and they're giving out different signals, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I don't know Lou and Ron, and I don't think I've ever met them, and now I'm supposed to know what I'm supposed to. Anyway, so the terminology and all that stuff, right? And but it didn't take me long to realize, and at that time they had Stan Winfrey at fullback that I think went to the Miami Dolphins, and they had Jerry Muckensturm who played for Chicago, and they had Mike Malham. He's a well-known coach in the area at Cabot and retired from Cabot. His dad was the defensive coordinator and at Arkansas State, and so those guys went on to play professional football, and Jamie Clips was a tight end, and Lloyd Walls was a back, and anyway, a defensive back, and I can't remember all the quarterbacks and everything, but it didn't take me long to realize that my college career in football and my professional career was pretty much at an end at 5'6", 175-pound nose guard in the Southern, South Conference, I think, or something like that. Was not going to last very long, so I decided it was getting close to our fraternity's yearly ball, and it'd be more fun to go to the yearly ball at the end of the season, at the end of it, than it was to stand on the sideline. So that kind of changed my career. But anyway,
yeah. You shared about how there were some things that it seemed like the Lord was just closing doors on. We've talked about a lot on here, and our heart in FCA is that we do believe that coaching is a calling, and I believe the same thing for teaching. There's a lot of really good teachers and a lot of really good coaches, and I think those things go hand in hand. To be a good coach, you have to be a good teacher. Would you maybe just share a little bit of your heart behind your years of coaching and experience now? looking back and even what your heartbeat is right now, FCA is a ministry that's specifically developed for coaches and athletes, and we believe we want to reach every coach and every athlete. So this next generation that's coming in, and Lance kind of hit on it a little bit, would you share a little bit of your heartbeat and why you've devoted your life to coaching and teaching in the ways that you did?
That's kind of, after I realized that's kind of what I was supposed to do, you still get frustrated on the journey when things don't always go the way that you want them to go in the plan, or your plan. And so that's always a struggle, and you can, you look at some of the great coaches, even if they're undefeated, there's a majority of people anymore, especially with media the way it is, he didn't tip his hat when he was supposed to, or whatever the case may be. So you got a lot of negative vibes always coming in. And I think you go and do what your heart tells you to do and try to cut out those distractions and realize that, we're so wired for a zero-sum lifestyle. You either win or you lose. There's no in between. Okay? You're either a winner or you're a loser. Okay. Maybe on a scoreboard. But if that's the case, then if I'm never going to be number one, you're never going to get a turtle to win a 100-meter dash, right? Not against a horse or a jackrabbit or anything else. It's not going to win. So from an individual standpoint, if I'm supposed to grow as an individual, all right, if I can move from point A to point B and do that in a more efficient way the next time, then basically I become a winner of myself and what I'm supposed to become. But from the zero sum, if I do it from the zero sum sense, I'm never first, so I'm a loser. So those are the things that I think sometimes as coaches, as myself, is you want to try to develop all your athletes the best that you can, but you understand that especially in high school, junior high, you don't always, whatever shows up is the athletes that you've got. And so to take that turtle, make him a little bit faster and try to get him into your system would be a success for him and also for you. Now, you might not win a ball game, but considering where those guys were at the time and you look back, they grew, you grew, and you learned something, they learned something. So basically, it's a win-win,
Yeah.
And I think that's, important, especially as I look back now. I think I tried to make that achievable for wherever they were at in line, and to go through, the other part of that is to go through the process, because you asked earlier about becoming a coach and what do you think on doing that. Well, there's a process involved. There's a learning curve, and even though you might be point A, right, or you think you're at the top, and then you get around some of those people that are not, or that are farther up the ladder than you are as far as knowledge and everything else. If you don't sit down and learn from them, then you're cutting yourself short. Now, whether you use it all or not, that doesn't make any difference, but the knowledge of what they do, because what that does is save you time and energy. And when you as you get older, I tell my own kids, I said, you need to listen to some of the adults and things and have some mentors, because at this point in time in your life, you got two valuable things, time and money. Mm-hmm. And I said, if it's taking your time, then you're using a lot of money to do that too. So if you can save time and money by having the experience of somebody else to help you get through it, then the better off you're going to be. And so use those tools that are there to help you become what you want to do and become as far as a coach is concerned. And, you know, helping person go from A to B.
A to B. I have a comment and a question. I know we're rounding third on our time. Mother, may I? Can I?
Yeah, go ahead. Is that my new name?
Dadgum, you went from co-host to Mother May I.
We're getting real close and intimate here.
Yes,
Well,
Lance is on a roll. I told you today, so you know. Just sit back, Zach. Relax. Enjoy the show.
Well, let me ask the comment, or let me ask the comment. Coach Comet. Let me share my comment and then ask the question.
Okay.
And then you tell us how we're doing on time, Zach. The comment, when you were talking about that key moment in your spiritual journey with the Lord at the revival, and then the baptism, and you came to that point, well, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to take a step of faith to follow you, Jesus, knowing I won't be perfect.
Right.
On one hand, this is my comment. I think sometimes, I mean, the integrity of his heart is what I love about Coach Comet. But on the other hand, it's interesting. For me, I had a guy that presented it because I see that a lot in my career as a minister of the gospel. So if I narrowed it down, I think sometimes you got to be careful with that because it's Christ alone, through grace alone, by faith alone, the Great Reformation pillars. And the guy that shared with me said, if you don't understand the sacrifice Jesus made for you, then you won't have the proper motivation to overflow into obedience. And so all he preached to me is grace, grace, grace. And you did nothing to earn it. And so at that moment, and I saw some of my friends would not follow Christ because they didn't get it. And some of them graduated. I don't know what happened. I just wonder if, for our listening audience, if you're wrestling with trusting Christ, but like Coach Comet, afraid you can't, be perfect, well, be careful because the perfect comes from Christ's atonement and who he was. He's your perfect. And all you do is stay in that focus that he gave his life for me and let love and gratitude motivate you into going forward and following him. And when you slip, John wrote in his follow-up letter, John 1:9, if you sin, and confess your sins, he's faithful and just to cleanse you from your sins and continue on. That's the foundation of grace. And you go forward. You're saved by grace, but you also are sanctified by grace versus the law that puts this heavy responsibility on yourself. So that's my comment for those that are just wrestling with that tension, because we want to do our best because he gave his best for us. But no one can be perfect after you come to Christ. In fact, how many of your sins were in the future when he died? All of them, which means even the ones after you start following Christ. So he has an easy yoke, and it's called grace. And that's why we'll sing for 10,000 years and just begun to understand Amazing Grace. My question.
Here it comes now. Zach, I'm not too sure.
You're in trouble now.
I'm trying to kind of read you a little bit on this one. I don't know whether I want to answer this one or not. And can I say this before you ask my question? Does that? It was like, I don't want to be hypocritical, and like I said, as I was baptized, it came out like a relationship. It's a one-to-one relationship with Christ. And does that mean that I'm not hypocritical? You can talk to my kids sometimes. I'm hypocritical, and my wife will tell you I'm hypocritical. And there's times, as I was mentioning, Lance and Zach, if you would have seen me about 15 minutes before and driving to get here, I would have, probably not been the most example of a great Christian at that point in time of being out on the road. So, yes, you do fall. You know, it's like me saying I'm on a diet and I'll never eat a cookie again or a bowl of ice cream. That's a lie. I will at some time, you know. But I hope that I've grown enough to understand what I can and can't do. I can't eat the whole half gallon or the gallon. I can have a couple scoops. And to me, that's as you develop that relationship and you work on that relationship and you realize what Christ says that he wants you to do and what he's done for you, that as you progress and grow, then those things those areas of being hypocritical and stuff will help you through his grace achieve what you want to do, which is not be that hypocritical person and stuff. So anyway, it's a process, and you got to continue to grow. And sometimes, you fail, and I go, I'm a failure. No, that's only if you quit. All that is a learning experience to keep on going, and
that's good.
And so and besides that, I mean, if that's the case, David wouldn't have got where he did, and you look at several of the goodness gracious, let's look at Peter for a minute.
Please.
Yeah.
There was a story about a guy that was witnessing to a guy, and he said, "No, I don't want to come to Christ and start coming to church because there's so many hypocrites in the church." And my friend replied, "Yes, there are hypocrites in the church, and it won't hurt us if we add one more." And then he went into grace.
Right.
My question, how much time we got?
We got like 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Holy cow.
So this would be a good way to finish.
Okay.
What I love about my friend, Coach Comet, is he's invested his life faithfully as a follower of Christ for his career. But he retired. Did he quit? No. He helps lead a coach's Bible study for the last 12, 15 years. But here's the best part when I want to finish with. Could you share a little bit about how you're developing men through your local church ministry that you're hitting up? Because he invited me to an event, and now I'm hooked. And there's one coming up. Maybe you can even share details through an invitation personally.
All right. Well, thank you.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay, I'll try to make this real quick. I'll do it Cliff Notes instead of the whole series of documentaries. But basically, one of the things is, and this was some things that had gone on in my family with my kids, and I realized that doing what I was doing, become a good coach and do that, which I think I was led to do. Some people paid a price, and that was partly my family, because I couldn't be at all their stuff and still do the job that I had to do. And my dad always, it was like, hey, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. And so if that guy hired you, you go to work. That's first, because if you don't take care of it, then, so that was kind of the deal behind it. So I felt along the line, and that in some areas I failed as a man and being that leader. And over a period of years, I think men have lost that role. And so what we're trying to do is get that back. And we just saw something that there's, kind of a movement on that the man's the head of the household and the lady should be subservient. And in a sense, yes, but not in the sense of a domineering type of thing. I'm not you're not a dictator. You're as men, we are called to be leaders. Servant leaders. Correct. Servant leaders. And that role, leadership, is not about me going, Zach, get the garbage picked up. Honey, I need the dinner on the table at 5 o'clock or whatever it is. It's learning to get your people and teaching them of what they need to do. And I think that's the same thing with the family. So we're doing this program that we're doing with the church that I go to, is we're working real hard to start developing men to be leaders, not necessarily tyrants or anything like that. That's not the purpose. It's to be leaders. And what are the qualities of a leader? And there's, you can look in the Bible, you can look at John Maxwell. There's a lot of different leadership books out there, and it's not just I'm right, shut up. Just do what I say.
Well, let me ask you this to finish. about a minute left. What curriculum are you using, and when's the next time y'all are going to meet as men to grow?
Well, we're getting ready to start a new one. I was just talking to our pastor today. It was Become a Man or Becoming Men, I think is what it is. I think it's by Robert Lewis, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
And then we've done...
What about Stepping Up?
We did Stepping Up last time,
Rainey.
And we're getting ready with Dennis Rainey, and we're in April we're having another men's conference, which has been really great for what we're doing, and it's open to people, and I go to Eagle Point Church, which is out in off of, let me think, Geyer Springs, and out by Southwest Christian Academy, and you can pull up their website and see, more information that grows. No, we just know it's going to be April 11th at this point in time.
What's that, just for the record, one more time, the website address, so people who are interested?
Is Eagle Point Church. It's on
One
Geyer
word?
Springs. Pardon me?
Like EaglePointChurch.com?
I never pull it up on the web, so I can't
Maybe
tell you.
there's
To be
another
honest with
way.
you. Yeah.
You can probably just search Eagle Point Church.
Yeah, and do that. But it's on. It's by Southwest Christian Academy on Geyer Springs. It's
right.
It's on the north side of it, not the south side.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway,
well, I learned a lot, and I'm encouraged by not only your testimony but the lessons that you've learned throughout your life. I think just to close here, young athletes need to know more and more that there's going to be adversity that comes in life, and we don't always have a choice in what adversity comes our way, but we do have a choice of how we respond to that adversity.
Correct.
And a lot of what you're sharing is so encouraging, because a lot of it is wins and losses. Now, you either win or you lose. You either get the recruit or you don't get the recruit. And really, when we think about God's vision for us, how He loves us unconditionally, it's never been about the end result. It's always about the development and how we grow. So
and being obedient to what He tells you to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm just going to tell you need to do it,
Absolutely.
and you need to be obedient.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
I'm finished real quick with a story about that. I was coaching in Barton, and I was coaching track, and I had a guy that ran the 400 for me, and we went to the state championship at Prescott, and Prescott had some incredible athletes in the 400 meter, and this is what my guy was running the event in. And he hadn't run faster than a 54 all year long or whatever it was. It might have been 55 somewhere, and it doesn't make any difference. But, he was upset because he took ninth in the state championship, and he ran like 2 to 3 seconds faster than he had all year long. But he was upset because he didn't win against the guy that was running a 45. And I looked at him, I said, wait a second. You just ran the best that you have ever ran in your entire life in a track meet. You set a new personal record. How can you be a loser? If you developed that to yourself and you did the best that you possibly could, and you didn't think you could do it anymore, and you could come out and do it again and improve more, how can you consider yourself to be a loser? It's not a zero-sum sense. It's you against yourself. So
that's exactly right. Yeah, that's a great story. I think that sums that up pretty well. So, Coach Comet, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for asking me and let me be a part.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time and your story. And Lance, honorary co-host, thank you so much for your service again today. And hey, thanks for joining us for Beyond the Huddle, the Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. We'll see you again next week.